On a remote island west of the Laniakea kingdom, Geo races away from the villagers chasing her. The mayor's daughter has spent years dreaming of the world beyond this quiet shore, and today she intends to reach it. An exhausted villager begs Geo to turn back before the mayor loses his temper. She refuses to spend her entire life in the countryside and shouts that her adventure starts now. The escape lasts only moments before her father, Hallie, bursts from the ground and catches her. As both mayor and a centipede dragon, he can paralyze his stubborn daughter before she reaches the village boundary. Geo protests that dragonfolk are forbidden from using their powers on ordinary people, but Hallie ignores the accusation. He orders her to remain on the island, work, raise a family, and die there, an entire future she absolutely refuses to accept. Locked away again, Geo is told that Hallie once served as a formidable mainland soldier and cannot be defeated. Yet she insists the world is too vast to ignore, while her father dismisses exploration as a childish obsession nobody values anymore. Hallie claims every summit, jungle, and ancient mystery has already been conquered or explained by the legendary adventurer Yuri Holst. Geo idolizes the man, but merely hearing that name sends her father into a rage. Hallie despises people who hide from reality behind dreams and romance, even threatening to kill Yuri if they ever met. While he continues ranting, Geo quietly slips from confinement and prepares another attempt. The escape fails, leaving Geo bruised and furious that her respected father controls every decision she makes. When a friend offers to let her leave someday as a treat, she rejects the pity, unwilling to accept freedom that can be taken back. Wondering whether her life will always remain this restricted, Geo goes fishing to clear her head. Something huge catches the hook, and she refuses to release the line despite its violent pull. What rises from the sea is not a fish but a grinning young man. Half drowned and strangely cheerful, he stares at Geo as though being dragged from the ocean were perfectly ordinary. After draining all the water she offers, the stranger cheerfully claims he has returned from death's door. Geo says rescuing him was instinct, though she cannot imagine who this bizarre castaway might be. The man insists that every favor must be repaid, calling it a fundamental law of the world. Geo has never heard such logic, and his unwavering confidence only makes the amnesiac stranger more mysterious. He admits that one day every memory of himself and the world simply vanished from his mind. With no identity or money, he boarded a ship without realizing passage required payment, was thrown overboard, and eventually drifted into Geo's fishing line. To keep him hidden, Geo brings the castaway to an abandoned lighthouse she uses as a secret base. He marvels at her enormous collection of books and begins recording every new discovery in a journal, including some rather embarrassing medical material. The man's journal reveals how difficult life feels when nearly everything is unknown. As Geo watches him freely embrace each discovery, his excitement only sharpens her frustration over being trapped, despite already knowing exactly where she wants to go. He reads Geo's old entries about deserts, brilliant stars, and distant towns, sensing the longing behind every page. When he notices her discomfort and asks whether her stomach hurts, she quickly hides her feelings and says it is nothing. Meanwhile, an ominous visitor approaches across a vast bridge of salt rising from the sea. The fishermen recognize at once that only a dragonfolk ability could reshape the coast on this scale. The dangerous visitor announces that he is searching for someone, while back at the lighthouse the amnesiac man introduces Geo to canned food he made himself. His strange meal proves far better than the insects he survived on the previous day. Geo opens up about her real dream, traveling the world, meeting countless people, witnessing extraordinary places, and preserving it all in a book that might inspire future children. Yet Geo fears her dream is childish, because Hallie and the villagers sacrificed their youth to build this home. Her father raised her here, and despite resenting his control, she cannot imagine opposing the man who gave her everything. The castaway answers by loudly calling her a fool, then mocks every insult she throws back. His ridiculous provocation breaks through her self-pity and forces Geo to confront what she is really afraid to say. He tells her that merely claiming to want adventure while surrendering to opposition is no different from being dead. When Geo asks what she should do, he rejects the question and asks something far more important. What does Geo herself want? With that simple challenge, hesitation disappears from her face. She declares that she is leaving and will no longer allow anyone, not even her father, to stand in her way. Back in the village, the workers wonder why Geo has not returned from fishing. Hallie insists that a person's value comes from serving the collective, and that a mayor's daughter cannot simply abandon her responsibilities, though his anger conceals a more personal fear. The villagers argue that their home will survive without one girl, but Hallie refuses to yield. Instead, he sets a brutal condition: land one hit on him, and he will acknowledge her dream. Geo tells her new friend that this confrontation belongs to her, and she must earn Hallie's blessing herself. Carrying the ring she was given earlier, she returns home determined to leave only after seeing her father smile. Before parting, Geo gives the nameless traveler an identity. Narrate, after a cursed wanderer from her favorite book, who searched for his lost family. He accepts it with delight, promises to use the name well, and vows that they will meet again. As Geo heads home before sunset, an unexplained sense of dread follows her through the darkening forest. She reaches the village expecting another argument, only to find Hallie waiting in the shadows with blood on his body. Instead of fighting, Hallie gives Geo permission to leave and orders her to flee the country at once. He hands her passage to the mainland and sends her toward the pier, warning that a far greater danger has reached the island. Before Geo can understand the warning, a dragon knight emerges and identifies his primary target. The government hunter has followed Hallie's trail straight to the mayor's daughter. The knight introduces himself as Yerkes and thanks Hallie for leading him to Geo. Declaring the former soldier a traitor, he prepares to execute him for hiding the girl from the government. Yerkes exposes the secret Hallie buried for years. The world's greatest adventurer, Yuri Holst, has a daughter, and her name is Geo Holst. Her isolated childhood suddenly becomes part of a far larger mystery. Hallie is not Geo's biological father at all. He secretly raised his friend's child beneath the government's nose. Her real father, Yuri, is currently wanted as the prime suspect in the murder of the kingdom's supreme ruler, the Dragon King. The kingdom exterminates traitors along with their descendants, no matter how far they flee. Geo now understands that Hallie's restrictions were never meant to crush her dream. They were meant to keep her alive. Yerkes savagely beats Hallie and mocks him for protecting the daughter of an accused killer. Hallie insists that Geo bears no guilt, begging the knight to take only his life, but Yerkes intends to kill everyone connected to Yuri. Geo steps between them with Hallie's gun aimed at the knight. Trembling but resolute, she tells Yerkes that she is the person he wants and orders him to stop hurting her father. Her shots fail to stop Yerkes, whose corrosive venom burns through the grass wherever it lands. Geo grabs the injured Hallie and runs, but the Dragon Knight follows with complete confidence. Carrying Hallie toward the sea, Geo gambles that they can escape across the water. Yet the revelation haunts her, and she asks whether Yerkes spoke the truth when he said she was never Hallie's daughter. Before Hallie can answer, Yerkes strikes again, expanding the earth to a devastating weapon. The impact tears through the ground and closes the distance between hunter and fugitives in an instant. Yerkes is a scale dragon who can enlarge any matter touched by his hand. Rock, soil, trees, and even an enemy's bones can become weapons, leaving Geo almost nowhere safe to run. The next blow leaves Geo concussed and barely able to stand. Assuming she is helpless, Yerkes turns back toward Hallie and decides to finish the troublesome old soldier first while she watches. As Geo lies dazed, every harsh warning from her childhood takes on a new meaning. Hallie surrendered his own freedom to protect her, while she resented him for stealing hers without ever understanding the danger surrounding them. Yerkes lifts Hallie and prepares the killing blow as Geo desperately apologizes. She promises to abandon every dream of adventure if her father will only survive. But Hallie assures her that she has done nothing wrong. A memory returns of Hallie teaching a younger Geo about volcanoes that spit fire before raining ash like snow. Her wonder once made him promise that they would see such places together. A promise buried beneath years of fear. Nereid's question echoes again. What does Geo truly want? Refusing to watch Hallie die, she recovers her resolve, raises the gun, and interrupts Yerkes just as he believes the mission is complete. Geo unloads several shots at the Dragon Knight, forcing him to defend himself. Yerkes blocks the bullets and calls her insane. But the attack proves that fear will no longer keep her obedient. Yerkes declares her gunfire a hostile's act against the crown, and labels her a government traitor. Hallie orders her to run from an enemy she cannot defeat, Yet Geo angrily refuses to abandon him. Geo rejects every command that others have used to control her life. Go, stay, live, or die. She will choose her own future, protect Hallie, survive this fight, and trample every obstacle blocking her path forward. A memory reveals Yuri entrusting his infant daughter to Hallie and promising to return within a few years. Back in the present, Yurkis assumes Geo's gun is her only idea and charges, certain that no armed human can threaten him. Geo spits out a cartridge, concealed in her mouth, and strikes it at the perfect moment. Unable to hurt Yurkis directly, she turns the ammunition into a point-blank trap. The cartridge detonates against the charging knight. Yurkis realizes too late that Geo hid it in her mouth, exploiting his certainty that the visible gun was the only weapon she could imagine. The gamble blasts Yurks away, and Geo admits that luck decided whether the powder would ignite. Apologizing despite knowing he is a villain, she orders the fallen knight to stay down and takes the narrow victory. Geo rushes to check Hallie's injuries, but their relief lasts only seconds. Yurkis rises from the wreckage, leaving her without another cartridge, another trick, or any clear way to stop him. A fist crashes into Yurks and sends him flying. Nereid has returned, casually reminding the knight that assault can get someone arrested, while Geo stares at her unlikely rescuer. Nereid confesses that the ocean became too frightening after dark, so he came looking for Geo and now wants to remain beside her. More importantly, he takes back his earlier insult. She is not boring in the slightest. Yurks furiously interrupts their reunion and threatens to tear apart anyone standing in his way. Nereid does not know the knight or his politics, but that threat alone is enough to make the amnesiac traveler fight. Nereid dodges the first strike and tells Yurkis not to interrupt his conversation. Re-energized by the canned food he ate earlier, he confidently prepares to test his strength again. A gigantic tail ending in snarling jaws rises behind Nereid as he tells Yurks to grit his teeth. The harmless castaway is actually a dragon folk powerful enough to make a dragon knight hesitate. Geo realizes that Nereid is dragon folk too, while Yurkis is stunned by the extraordinary energy surrounding him. Nereid simply dismisses the knight's rank and refuses to believe that possessing a tail makes anyone superior. Yurks warns that protecting a king killer's daughter will make Nereid an accomplice and could trigger war with the government. Nereid ignores every threat, closes the distance, and strikes hard enough to shatter the knight's defenses. Yurkis demands whether Nereid understands the consequences of attacking a royal officer. Nereid answers with another crushing blow and makes his position perfectly clear. He does not care about any of it. The impact erupts across the island like an explosion, swallowing the battleground in light and debris. Nereid's raw force overwhelms the Dragon Knight's enlarged weapons and leaves a massive scar across the coast. When the smoke clears, Nereid admits that Yurksi startled him but tells the defeated knight not to become so talkative. The government warrior's ability collapses along with his battered body. Geo confirms that Yurkis' power has stopped and can barely comprehend how easily Nereid defeated him. Then she returns to the question that matters most and invites the mysterious dragonfolk to leave the island with her. Nereid gladly accepts, revealing that he has been searching for Yuri for reasons of his own. Since Geo is Yuri's daughter, he asks her to guide him. And besides, every adventure is more exciting with two companions. Hallie tells Geo to choose her own path. He only hid her to protect Yuri's last blood relative from the government, yet after raising her to be kinder and braver than the father who vanished, he knows adventure still runs in her blood. Geo refuses to let Hallie dismiss himself as an unworthy parent. With one fierce, tearful blow, she reminds him that this island will always be the home she returns to, no matter how far her journey carries her. As father and daughter struggle to say goodbye, Nereid discovers something wonderful about humans. Their love can build roads across impossible distances. The villagers form a path over the sea, giving Geo and Hallie the farewell neither could put into words. Beyond the island, Geo and Nereid follow the newly formed route toward Hawera, commonly known as Vaganer Town. Even open water fascinates Nereid as he learns the difference between oceans, lakes, rivers, and puddles. They reach the mainland far sooner than Geo expected. Standing before a real town for the first time, she celebrates with Nereid, thrilled that the adventure she imagined for years has finally become real. Wagoner Town rises before them in stacked, brightly colored districts, alive with cargo and traveler seats. Everywhere, Wagoners direct customers by color and clock position, revealing a city built around transporting goods. Geo is dazzled by the crowds, paved streets, and electric lights, but Narade has a stranger priority. He begins stopping random pedestrians to ask whether they recognize him, turning their grand arrival into immediate chaos. Geo urgently reminds him that attacking a dragon knight made them fugitives, so drawing attention is dangerous. Unfortunately, Narade's visible tail and unusual dragonfolk features have already made curious townspeople stare. To keep their identities hidden, Geo wraps Narade in a cloak and orders him to conceal his tail. His innocent response catches her off guard. Despite possessing one himself, he does not even know what dragonfolk are. Geo explains that dragonfolk descend from the mysterious Laniakea dragon, one of the world's 7 wonders. Born with tails and extraordinary abilities, they helped shape the nation, yet the true nature of their dragon source remains unsolved. That mystery only deepens around Narade. Unlike ordinary dragonfolk, he cannot retract his tail, and a single punch from him reshaped an island, forcing Geo to wonder what kind of being her amnesiac companion truly is. Before she can press him further, a runaway delivery wagon tears through the street with a child trapped aboard. Hearing the desperate cries for help, Narade plants himself directly in its path. Narade catches the careening wagon and falling cargo with brute strength, saving the boy before anyone is hurt. Shaken but unharmed, the young driver apologizes for causing such a dangerous scene. The boy introduces himself as Polta, a trainee delivery man whose wagwatten bolted after a dog frightened him. Geo and Narade offer to help complete his route, though Narade's ridiculous complaint about the dog quickly breaks the tension. Polta has trained as a wagoner since childhood, while Narade is enchanted by every tiny creature along the road. As they travel, Polta explains that the town's color-coded buildings began as a way to guide people who could not read. With each district they cross, Polta proudly describes Wagoner Town's customs and hidden corners. Geo notices that the timid apprentice becomes surprisingly animated whenever he speaks about the home he loves. Their cheerful tour ends at a crowded tunnel, where merchants and wagoners are locked in a furious argument. Polta recognizes the men immediately and realizes the town's long-simmering dispute has erupted again. Harold, leader of the wagoners, demands that construction of a new railway be stopped before it destroys their livelihood. The merchants refuse, and a month of resentment between the two guilds boils toward violence. Polta explains that wagoners have always distributed the town's goods, but their numbers are shrinking with age. A railway could revive trade and connect the town to the mainland, while also making the wagoners' entire profession obsolete. The merchants accuse the wagoners of blocking progress, while the wagoners insist that ordinary porters cannot replace their skill and pride. Insults fly, fists rise, and the argument finally becomes a street fight. Narade steps between both factions and stops their blows with his bare hands. He tells them that mocking another person's work solves nothing. They are neighbors facing change, so they should search for a way to survive together. Neither side appreciates advice from an outsider, and both leaders punch Narade at once. As he comically apologizes, Harold tells Polta that young wagoners like him must protect their future, leaving the apprentice visibly conflicted. After Geo scolds Narade for interfering so recklessly, the guild leaders cool down and apologize. Polta then admits something unexpected. Unlike his fellow wagoners, he does not actually want the railway construction stopped. Polta dreams of becoming a scholar who studies ancient railway ruins, but that requires attending school on the mainland. He has saved money for years, yet feels guilty imagining a future without the wagoners and the boss who raised him. Convinced there is no acceptable choice, Polta prepares to abandon his dream. Geo snaps him out of that resignation and asks whether he has ever honestly told Harold or the others what he wants. When Polta admits he has remained silent, Geo calls his surrender cowardly. Complaining alone will change nothing, but speaking openly might create a path neither side has considered. Encouraged by her blunt honesty, Polta resolves to face his boss and reveal his dream. Geo and Narade promise to support him, and the three hold an urgent strategy meeting before the next confrontation. By the following morning, merchants and wagoners gather at the tunnel, armed for a brawl. Harold orders his men to stand firm, while Polta watches nervously as their chance for peaceful discussion begins slipping away. A furious merchant draws a gun, declaring that the railway has been delayed long enough. Harold grapples with him amid vicious insults, and one reckless movement turns the confrontation into something far more dangerous. The gun fires, wounding a man and shattering the crowd's final restraint. Convinced that Waggoner Town is finished, both factions charge into open violence before anyone can restore order. A disguised Geo suddenly takes Enfirm through a megaphone, ordering everyone to stop. Claiming to be a traveler whose long-awaited vacation is being ruined, she leaves yesterday's combatants confused, but finally forces them to listen. The guild leaders order the troublesome girl to leave, but Geo calmly announces that she has come to ask for work. Before they can dismiss her, Polta arrives with the wagon that will turn her strange demand into a real proposal. Polta steps between the two hostile factions in his wagoner's uniform, surprising everyone who knew him as a timid apprentice. The leaders stare each other down, waiting to hear what the boy has finally chosen to say. Polta officially welcomes everyone to Hawera, the town travelers know as Waggoner Town, and introduces himself as their guide. Though nervous before the crowd, he begins the same heartfelt tour he gave Geo and Nereid. As the wagon rolls onward, Polta explains how immigrants founded Hawera at the mouth of the ocean. Its red, yellow, green, and blue districts still preserve the beauty of many cultures living side by side. The scene reveals Geo's plan from the previous day. Instead of fighting over the railway, the wagoners can collect visitors from the new station and carry them through town. Now Polta's tour is the negotiation itself. Geo argues that every traveler wants to discover something unfamiliar, making tourism a new source of work. No one knows Hawera better than Polta, so he can teach the other wagoners how to share its charms. Polta promises to pursue his own education without abandoning his neighbor's livelihood. Once the station opens, their wagons will carry experiences instead of cargo, transforming the entire town into the valuable resource that keeps them working. Several adults admit that Geo's idea could let everyone move forward without losing. Yet just as Polta begins to hope, Harold calls the plan unrealistic and rejects it, forcing the boy to defend more than a clever proposal. Harold warns that pretty scenery cannot attract tourists forever, and early excitement will inevitably fade. Children may imagine perfect answers, he says, but adults survive by recognizing limits and giving up, so the plan is denied. Polta's confidence collapses as he wonders how a child could ever convince grown men. Nereid ignores the failed argument and asks a much simpler question. If no adult were deciding for him, what would Polta truly want? Polta begins answering with memories rather than strategy. He talks about Auntie Caron's two affectionate dogs, which rush toward every visitor and make friends as soon as anyone comes close. Then he names the neighbors who define his home. Uncle Ho's walking before dawn, talented dancing sisters, a baby nearing her birthday, and elders tending flowers. Remembering them all, Polta breaks down because Hawera is filled with good people. Through his tears, Polta declares that he loves both the town and everyone inside it. He cannot bear watching them split apart, yet he also cannot accept preserving their bond by refusing every change. The guild leaders realize this plea was never scripted by Geo. Certain that words alone still will not reach them, Nereid grabs both men and launches into another wildly direct demonstration. Nereid carries the terrified leaders high above Hawera, forcing them to look down upon every street and neighbor Polta treasures. Geo explains that the view beneath them embodies the apprentice's feelings for his entire town. From above, each leader remembers the burdens inherited from the previous generation, failing companies, aging bodies, and parents begging their children to carry everyone toward a better future. At last, they understand what Polta is trying to protect. The merchants and wagoners apologize, end their feud, and promise to build the new plan together, for Hawera's sake. Fresh ideas spread through the crowd, while Geo reassures Polta that his community is not going anywhere. Far from Hawera's celebration, the injured Yerkes drags himself onward. Barely conscious, he vows to warn his allies that the terrifying man from Geo's island survived and could threaten the kingdom itself. The next day, Geo and Nereid prepare to leave the town they saved. The citizens are still arguing, but now they debate how to improve their shared future, while the travelers wonder why Polta has not appeared to say goodbye. Polta finally arrives wearing an extravagant new guide uniform, claiming to have completely reinvented himself overnight. Since tourism will be his profession, he studied how to appear cheerful, though his bizarre costume leaves Geo speechless. His new confidence lasts only until yesterday's dog snarls at him, but Polta quickly focuses on Gio's destination. When he learns that the pair are searching for Yuri Holst, the infamous name shocks him. Gio admits Yuri is both the accused killer of the Dragon King and her biological father. She refuses to trust rumors alone. She will meet her former hero, judge him herself, and punch him for abandoning his daughter if necessary. Their conversation stops when they find an old woman lying motionless in the street and muttering in her sleep. Nereid considers an absurdly violent way to wake her, forcing Gio to hold him back and approach carefully. Polta frantically warns that local legend says anyone who answers a sleeper's words will trap that person in endless sleep. Gio nearly panics over Nereid's response, until the woman casually wakes and declares that she enjoyed a wonderful nap. The stranger instantly calls Nereid a cutie and greets him with a punch powerful enough to send him crashing into a nearby bar. Moments later, the travelers sit with her as she cheerfully treats the destruction like a harmless misunderstanding. She introduces herself as Susie, a kangaroo dragon, alongside her long-suffering son William. Offering food as an apology, the exuberant mother boasts shamelessly, while William laments being dragged into another humiliating incident. Gio realizes Susie and William are the first dragonfolk she has met since leaving the island and fears they may serve the government. Nereid nearly exposes himself in excitement, but Susie has already noticed their discomfort around dragonfolk. William reveals that he and his mother intend to form a knighthood, a government-approved vigilante group led by a dragon knight. Susie grins at the prospect of finally enjoying some long-overdue action. Because the central government cannot control every region, local knighthoods enforce their own laws. And defeating an area's dragon knight transfers that jurisdiction to the victor. Susie wants the title purely to attract powerful challengers and indulge her love of combat. Susie abruptly drops her jovial act and identifies Nereid as dragonfolk despite his disguise. Sensing strength beyond the local dragon knight, she invites him to fight, while Gio realizes the friendly meal has become a dangerous challenge. Nereid admits what he is but refuses to battle inside the bar. He says that no matter how strong he may be, striking an old lady would keep him from getting any sleep. An answer Susie clearly does not accept. Before Nereid can finish insulting her age, Susie punches him through several walls. Gio watches him vanish across the district and wonders how another peaceful meal became a disaster. Susie calls after him, eager to hear his verdict on the opening blow. Nereid climbs from the wreckage grinning. Rather than frightening him, the first serious injury of his journey has fired him up. A crowd gathers as Nereid exposes his tail and accepts the challenge. Susie may recruit him if he proves brave enough, though Gio would prefer that both dragonfolk stop destroying Huera. Nereid rushes her with complete confidence. Susie slips around the obvious attack and calls him dull, demonstrating that raw strength means little when an opponent can read every move. He adapts, catches her follow-up, and assumes close range has neutralized the elderly fighter. Susie smiles because he has misunderstood both her body and her ability. Her kangaroo tail opens and releases a gigantic arm stored inside it. The compressed limb smashes Nereid away with strength accumulated over decades. William explains that kangaroo dragons can store objects, and even physical power, inside their tails. Susie has preserved muscle from her youth and compressed it into this monstrous weapon. The hidden arm towers above the street, completely overturning Gio's first impression of the harmless old woman. Even the battered Nereid admits that Susie's technique is magnificent. Nereid watches the next sweep, memorizes its path, and dodges by a hair. Susie's satisfied expression warns that learning one pattern was exactly the bait she wanted him to take. The fist detaches from the arm and changes direction on its own. It closes around Nereid before he can react, proving the stored weapon is far more than a simple punch. Susie reels him back and pounds him into the ground as Gio screams for her to stop. The living hand keeps Nereid trapped with no room to counter. When the crater falls silent, Susie declares herself the winner. Nothing thrills her more than defeating a strong opponent, and she cannot understand anyone who would abandon that feeling. Then Nereid rises through the dust, bloodied and laughing. He has never been hurt this badly, and Susie recognizes the same hunger for combat burning in his eyes. Now treating Susie as a true rival, Nereid asks for the real fight to begin. Their next collision tears through the street with neither dragonfolk holding back. Susie's giant hand catches him again, but this time Nereid stops its fingers with his own. His tail swings into position as he promises to return every blow she taught him, calling the counterattack his review lesson. Nereid imitates Susie's timing and answers power with power. The strike breaks her defense and sends the veteran flying. Susie praises the counter, but refuses to surrender her temporary Dragon Knight title without a decisive finish. Nereid jokingly calls her his new brother-in-arms, delighted by their strange bond. One final collision shakes Hawira and settles the contest. The two clasp hands afterward, sealing a ridiculous friendship forged entirely through combat. The celebration ends when local officers arrest Susie and William. They are notorious dine and dashers with reports filed across the region, and Geo watches in disbelief as her newest acquaintances are hauled away before paying for anything. Polta tearfully says goodbye and asks to try a parfait before they part. That evening, his grateful employers provide Geo and Nereid with a luxurious horse-drawn sleeper wagon for the next stage of their journey. Inside, Geo marvels at real beds, sleeping fruit, and every generous comfort prepared for them. Polta will drive through the night, allowing the travelers to rest after spending one final day with Hawira's people. As Geo settles into the cabin, Nereid's awkward comments make her question what exactly he is thinking. Their childish bickering returns almost immediately, proving that even a romantic night journey cannot make these two behave normally. They realize they never chose whether to travel toward the ocean or the mountains, so Geo lets Nereid decide. More importantly, she asks why he seeks Yuri when neither of them possesses a single reliable lead. Nereid falls asleep before answering and murmurs a farewell in his dreams. Remembering Hawira's superstition, Geo hesitates to respond, then senses that this ordinary sleep is becoming something far more ominous. A voice inside the dream praises Geo for meeting Nereid and approving the name she gave him. The speaker claims everything is proceeding according to plan, introduces himself as Yuri Holst, and says both travelers have roles to fulfill. Fragments of Nereid's lost memory surface, unfamiliar hands, a place he cannot recognize, and desperate questions about his own identity. A shadowed man promises that he will understand soon, beginning the King Killer's message. Geo and Nereid become trapped in the same unnatural vision, where Yuri's presence seems to flow through a dragon ability neither can identify. The sensation clearly does not belong to Nereid himself. Yuri delivers two blunt statements before time runs out. He did not kill the Dragon King, and Geo and Nereid must not involve themselves any further. Remaining inactive, he says, is the role he assigns them both. He insists that their survival together has meaning and that understanding will come in time. Then the connection snaps, leaving Nereid asleep again, while an infuriated Geo tries to drag more answers from the vanished messenger. Nereid recalls that his oldest memory may place him beside Yuri somewhere unknown, suggesting the adventurer helped make him what he is. Afraid the truth could be worse than expected, he cannot promise Geo that pursuing it will be safe. Geo refuses to retreat. No real adventurer quits merely because someone orders them to stop, so she and Nereid agree to find Yuri and force him to explain every secret face to face. With no clues to follow, Geo proposes the one thing every great adventure needs: comrades. More friends mean more knowledge, more possibilities, and, above all, the irresistible romance of traveling together, so they choose the next town as their first goal. At sunrise, the pair leave Hawira behind and continue along the mountain road. Polta watches them disappear into the distance, smiling as their search for allies and Yuri Holst truly begins. Geo is awestruck by Crumcray Pass, a colossal valley she could never have seen from her island. A warning sign explains that its cliffs crumble constantly, just as the ledge beneath her feet begins to break. The rock gives way and sends Geo plunging into the ravine. Nereid dives after her without hesitation, racing downward as the unstable cliff collapses around them. Nereid accelerates through the falling debris and finally catches up to Geo. With the ground rushing closer, he swings his tail toward the cliff in a desperate attempt to stop them both. His tail anchors into the rock, and Nereid catches Geo safely in his arms. An eye-patched traveler named Reno watches in disbelief, because the pair have just fallen from a cliff and walked away completely unharmed. Reno directs them toward the nearby town, and admits the cliff is famous for collapsing. Geo casually thanks him for the route, while the stunned stranger wonders what kind of dragonfolk could survive such a fall. Beyond the pass, Geo races joyfully across an open grassland she once knew only from encyclopedias. Reno points them toward Yubale but refuses to accompany them, warning that he can never return to the town himself. Reno explains that his family served as dragon knights for generations until bandits defeated him and seized his territory. Bound by knighthood law, he surrendered the domain without resisting, even though he believes he could have won a rematch. The new ruler is Schmidt Zachman, a cruel, self-proclaimed scientist who tortures people for knowledge. More importantly, Schmidt once served Yuri Holst and now appears on the government's erasure list, giving Geo the first genuine lead in her search. Reno confirms that both he and Schmidt are targets of the erasure campaign because of their connection to Yuri. As Yubale's towering white cliffs rise ahead, Geo realizes this dangerous city may contain answers. Geo learns that knighthoods are independent domains with their own laws and cultures, and any dragon knight may challenge another for control. Losing means surrendering both the territory and all authority over it. Yubale, the city of the White Hill, emerges like a natural fortress carved by centuries of uplift and erosion. Geo marvels at the immense limestone walls, excited rather than frightened by what may wait inside. Reno repeats that Schmidt served Yuri and is hunted by the same government campaign targeting Geo. Her curiosity instantly overwhelms caution, and she presses him to reveal everything he knows about the mysterious scientist. Years before the king's death, Yuri recruited Schmidt for research called his final challenge, something even Reno could not understand. Everyone involved was later marked for erasure, leaving Reno exiled and terrified for the townspeople he abandoned. That possible link to Yuri is enough for Geo and Nereid. While Reno tells them to wait and merely scout the city, the two charge ahead, because no true adventurer can suppress curiosity just because danger is involved. Inside Yubale, every street stands empty despite the middle of the day. Geo and Nereid call out for Schmidt and search for residents, but the unsettling silence suggests the entire population is hiding. A mysterious girl finally appears and warns them to stop making noise. Rather than obey, Nereid directly asks what she knows about Yuri Holst, drawing an even colder warning that talking is forbidden. The girl explains that residents must remain indoors whenever the cane dragon passes overhead. Metallic echoes ring across the sky as the hidden weapon arrives, and even Geo cannot tell what she is seeing. The cane dragon, also called the Dragon's Eye, is an artificial moon supposedly created by the first Dragon King to watch over the world. Its distant path hangs ominously above the kingdom. Orbiting at impossible speed, the Dragon's Eye obeys the current king and can destroy anything within the atmosphere. The girl describes it like a nursery warning, a star dropped upon disobedient children, while Geo recognizes something disturbingly familiar. Nereid notices Geo suddenly freeze and asks what is wrong. She dismisses the feeling as momentary distraction, but her troubled expression shows that the weapon has awakened a memory she cannot yet explain. The mysterious girl is impressed by Geo's knowledge of ancient wonders, and the two briefly bond over their curiosity. Their conversation ends when townspeople finally emerge, furious about the noise caused by outsiders. Armed residents surround Geo and Nereid, assuming anyone associated with Reno must serve the invading Dragon Knights. The travelers try to explain that Reno merely directed them here, but his name only worsens the crowd's anger. The townspeople despise Schmidt's forces, yet call Reno an even greater traitor for surrendering and leaving. They threaten to beat, imprison, or expel the newcomers, while refusing to hear why they came. When a man tries using the nearby girl as an excuse for violence, Nereid condemns the adults for involving a child. The crowd stares back in confusion. Ever since the travelers arrived, there have been only two of them. The supposed girl has vanished without a trace. From the rooftops, the hidden observer concludes that the newcomers revealed far more than expected and slips away to report what he has learned. The Watcher reveals his true identity as Schmidt Zachman, a Mujina dragon capable of shapeshifting. Recognizing Nereid's nature, the scientist greets the mysterious wave dragon as though their meeting has been anticipated. Outside Yubale, ominous activity continues within the cliffs surrounding the city of the White Hill. Something vast is being prepared beneath the stone while the unsuspecting travelers remain inside. Deep underground, exhausted prisoners haul enormous loads through a cavern as brutal overseers drive them onward. No one is allowed to stop until the day's work is finished, regardless of injury or exhaustion. The operations leader, Dragon Knight Chalk, receives confirmation that explosives are ready in Block C. Delighted only by news that benefits him, he warns his men that any failure will cost them their eardrums. A captive who tried to escape begs to return home long enough to free his starving dog, promising to come back afterward. One guard asks whether another beating will be enough punishment. Chalk pretends to understand the man's grief, then coldly declares that he will end the tragedy himself. With one sudden crushing motion, the Dragon Knight murders the pleading prisoner. Chalk complains that valuable manpower nearly escaped and mocks the dead man's pain as though he were the true victim. Watching this casual cruelty, an unseen figure condemns the Dragon Knight as a thief. Chalk's coral dragon power has turned the prisoner's skull to stone, increasing its mass until his neck cannot support it. He warns everyone that he is the boss. Then notices Schmidt has entered the cavern behind him. Schmidt analyzes how Chalk's left hand changes matter by channeling invisible atmospheric energy through dragon veins. These currents react to dragonfolk tales and create their abilities, yet remain beyond humanity's technology and understanding. Chalk mocks Schmidt's shapeshifting face. While Schmidt praises the conquest, his cunning ally stole an isolated knighthood, enslaved its residents, and converted an abandoned cave into a private base worshipping the Dragon King. Chalk believes the strongest dragonfolk were chosen to become knights and rule everyone beneath them. He cares nothing for distant people or failed ruins, ordering Schmidt to destroy whatever research site has disappointed him. To Chalk, Reno's plea for mercy merely proved that the strong should prey upon the weak. He intends to harvest power until he becomes the greatest Dragon Knight. But Schmidt interrupts with news of someone fascinating inside town. Elsewhere, Geo and Nereid sit behind bars while the ordinary city continues overhead. Their hunt for Schmidt has ended for the moment, with suspicious residents treating them as enemy agents. The townspeople insist the outsiders remain jailed until their identities are known, then search every item in their packs. Even Geo's underwear and sentimental belongings are handled like evidence, deepening the humiliating misunderstanding. Geo protests that prisons should hold criminals, not innocent travelers, but her captors refuse to trust either of them. Nereid points out that other shabby strangers are locked nearby, suggesting the town's fear reaches far beyond Reno. Geo considers the impossible girl only she and Nereid could see, and the residents' hatred of Reno. A guard then reveals that the underground jail connects to the river and can be flooded with freezing water in under 5 minutes. While Geo realizes their captors may execute them, Nereid becomes absurdly excited by the water. She whispers a plan. Before searching for Schmidt, they must return to Reno and uncover why the town considers him an enemy. Nereid tears open the iron bars with effortless strength, giving Geo the daring prison escape she imagined. Unfortunately, her companion immediately proves that an unpredictable adventure rarely follows the elegant plan in her head. Rather than hide, they walk straight toward the stunned guards and announce that lingering underground is pointless. Their first destination will be Reno, confirming the captor's suspicions, even as Geo urges Nereid to be subtle. One terrified guard begs them to remain quietly in custody, because he will be executed if they escape. When Nereid proposes being released later, the man admits they are meant to die, leaving the travelers with no reason to cooperate. Before anyone can decide what comes next, a colossal explosion erupts above the jail. Smoke swallows part of Ubale as a new attacker crashes through the stone complex. The guards panic and search the cells, only for one's intruder to engulf people seemingly at will. Voices vanish one after another until every prisoner and guard stands helpless before the newcomer. The remaining men bow and welcome Master Bronze, a grotesque sludge dragon whose body drips like living tar. One command from him silences the room and exposes how completely Schmidt's forces control the town. Bronze tries to greet old subordinates by name, forgets instantly, and spirals into self-pity about the mother who abandoned him. The absurd breakdown becomes terrifying when every guard immediately stands rigid at his attention. Declaring that he loves watching monkeys grovel, Bronze orders everyone to bow. The Zids obey, but 2 unknown prisoners remain upright behind him, unwilling to honor either his promise or his authority. Bronze notices the broken bars and demands to know who disobeyed Chalk's order to prevent escapes. Narade openly admits doing it and says he wants to leave Ubale, drawing the sludge dragon's full attention. Bronze refuses to let them walk away, but Narade simply tells Geo they are leaving. Even as the brickwork melts around them, Geo pauses to marvel at the strange ability, forcing Narade to pull her toward safety. Bronze coats Narade's hands in explosive sludge and laughs at the idea of being defeated. Narade calmly asks whether winning will earn their freedom. While everyone else insists such a victory is impossible, a lethal mass of sludge flies toward him, yet Narade catches it with one hand. The guards finally recognize him as Dragonfolk, and Bronze realizes this opponent is nothing like an ordinary human prisoner. Bronze attempts to detonate the substance, but Narade's grip suppresses every explosion. As the compressed sludge refuses to react, confidence drains from the self-important enforcer's face. Narade crushes the attack and sends Bronze blasting through the jail, declaring that pretending to seek knowledge is worse than being dead inside. Only afterward does he realize he never even introduced himself. Standing over the wreckage, Narade finally gives his name and admits that his memories are missing. He travels to discover who he truly is, then cheerfully invites the defeated stranger to get along. As though the devastating punch were a friendly greeting, 2 days before Geo and Narade reached Ubale, the battered Yerkes trudged through the unstable pass after his gasoline vehicle failed, bitterly wishing he had ridden a baby deer instead. In the northeastern Scorpio region, Dragon Knight Kerner, a spider dragon, finishes capturing an entire group with binding threads. The tedious operation barely interests her before another familiar officer arrives. Still recovering from Narade's island attack, Yerkes meets Kerner and asks for their captain. She reports that Antares has already departed for Ubale, after destroying a hidden smuggling settlement. Kerner shows him what remains of the illegal town, a ruined settlement divided by enormous cuts. Their captain needed only a few minutes and a single drawn sword to erase everything. Yerkes realizes the path beneath him is actually another impossibly clean slash through solid rock. Kerner praises their captain, then demands his report on the failed capture and execution of Yuri Holst's secret child. Eliminating Yuri and his bloodline is the government's greatest wish, one that could elevate their entire knighthood. Yet Yerkes insists the situation has changed, haunted by the monstrous force he encountered on Geo's island. Back in Ubale, Narade has knocked Bronze unconscious despite holding back. Geo laments losing her chance to question him, while the astonished townspeople realize this stranger just demolished one of Schmidt's strongest enforcers. The residents surround Narade with questions about his hidden tale, origin, and impossible power. When they learn he and Geo are searching for Yuri Holst, the travelers explain that their personal mission brought them through town. Geo says Reno mentioned Schmidt, but no resident knows where the scientist hides. Instead, they condemn their former Dragon Knight as a spineless coward who invented excuses, abandoned his duty, and disgraced the title. Geo argues that blaming Reno after he tried to defend them feels unfair, especially when no one knows whether he lied. The townspeople refuse. In their eyes, Reno never protected anyone. He simply ran away. Their argument is interrupted when Bronze revives and rockets out of the ruins. Realizing the mud-covered enforcer is escaping, Geo points him out as he races to warn Captain Chalk. Because Narade completely neutralized his ability and knows about Schmidt, Bronze suspects he may be a government agent. Before the enforcer can disappear, Narade grabs on and asks exactly where he thinks he is going. Bronze blasts away, challenging Narade to follow if he can keep up. Geo stares after them in disbelief, while the townspeople admit they never knew the sludge dragon possessed a flight technique. Bronze reveals that combustible gas from his tail lets him fly nearly as fast as a mainland jet. Unfortunately for him, Narade is already clinging aboard and loving every second, then leaves Geo to handle the town alone. During the airborne chase, Narade becomes distracted by a mountain shaped like a backside. When Bronze mentions delayed underwater work, Narade abruptly demands a proper explanation for why the operation has fallen behind schedule. Inside the caverns, Chalk threatens to mutilate the families of workers who cannot complete his plan, declaring survival their own responsibility. Before the prisoners can answer, an incoming collision tears through the stronghold. Chalk dismisses humans as monkeys helpless, before dragonfolk and orders Bronze to detonate the bedrock. But the returning subordinate's presence feels wrong. as if something far more dangerous is riding with him. Bronze crashes into the chamber screaming that the stranger is bad news. Chalk immediately orders the intruder killed, but Nereid uses his unwilling ride to smash directly into the Dragon Knight's position. Chalk blasts Bronze and Nereid apart, scattering stone across the cavern. The ease of his counter shows that Bronze was never more than an expendable subordinate. Nereid punches through the impact and drives deeper into the base. For the first time, Chalk looks surprised by the intruder's speed and refusal to stay down. Bronze lies crumpled as his captain demands an explanation. Nereid drops from above, cheerfully remarks that everything worked out, and turns his accidental arrival into a direct challenge. Only then does Nereid notice how far the flight carried him from Yubale. Before he can retrace the route, Chalk attacks. The blow drives Nereid through rock and covers him in mud. More irritated by the mess than the pain, he rises to face the dark-haired Dragon Knight. Chalk demands to know why an unknown dragonfolk entered his kingdom. Nereid gives his name, insists he did not come to fight, and asks for Schmidt. Nereid has no reason to trust Yubale's residents, but he refuses to ignore obvious cruelty. Chalk calls fairness an invention of the weak. In his territory, strength alone determines truth. Nereid grins at the flaw in that logic. If he defeats Chalk, then his own truth wins. The Dragon Knight prepares to prove otherwise. A jagged stone spear tears into Nereid before he can react. Chalk's Coral Dragon ability has turned the entire cavern into an extension of his hands. Chalk explains that wounds from the spear become stone, growing inward until they pierce the victim's organs. Annoyed by the interruption, he decides to kill Nereid regardless of his identity. Now aware of the technique, Nereid dodges the next thrust and counters with his tail. He even thanks Chalk for explaining a trick that should not work twice. The confidence is premature. Petrification travels through anything touching Chalk's attack, allowing spikes to race along Nereid's tail and close around his guard. Stone spears fill the cave faster than Nereid can dodge. Certain that every route is sealed, Chalk orders the trapped intruder to die. Nereid attacks the ground instead of the spears. If Chalk's power needs connected stone to spread, breaking that connection will stop it. One swing shatters the cavern floor into separate slabs. With no continuous path remaining, the petrification dies before reaching Nereid. Chalk understands the tactic, but cannot believe the force behind it. Nereid disrupted a dragon vein pathway through brute strength rather than theory. Nereid lifts another slab while tremors shake Yubale above. Residents blame a mythical underground catfish, but Geo correctly suspects her companion is rearranging the mountain. Holding the rock overhead, Nereid prepares to throw it. Chalk waits for the reckless leap that should leave his opponent defenseless in midair. Nereid instead uses the recoil of his tail to control his acceleration. What looked like a vulnerable jump becomes a guided charge. Chalk recognizes the contradiction before him. Nereid behaves without thought, yet wastes no movement, and reads combat with terrifying precision. Instinct this refined cannot belong to an ordinary wanderer. For an instant, Chalk feels as though strength itself has taken human form. Nereid finds the stare creepy, then a hidden counter knocks him away. The counter sends Nereid into a crystalline chamber concealed behind the battlefield. Even during the fight, the ancient architecture makes him stop and ask what he has found. Chalk names it the Seven Stars Caves, sacred ruins built for the first Dragon King, Atlas Castasterus. He plans to profane the site, claim it as his castle, and rise into the royal zodiacs. Nereid cannot understand conquering a town merely to hide underground. Chalk admits that logic is irrelevant. Destroying what people worship and watching them suffer is the entire pleasure. Above ground, Geo runs 4 miles back to Reno and finds him safe. Nereid flew away with Bronze, she explains, and is probably fighting the gang's leader beneath Yubale. Geo asks what truly happened when Reno lost the town. The resident's shared story feels suspiciously absolute, and his expression suggests that someone manipulated what they saw. Reno explains that Schmidt's Zmugina dragon power can distort the senses. While Reno was absent, Schmidt impersonated him, staged a public defeat, and destroyed the town's faith without beating its real knight. Even knowing he was framed, Reno believes he failed the generations that protected Yubale. Shame has kept him in exile, but Geo refuses to accept guilt manufactured by someone else. Reno saw Chalk's power once, and knew a challenge meant certain death. He has survived outside with that terror ever since, until Gio asks what he wants instead of what fear allows. The memory still makes him shake. Chalk claimed Yubale, spared Reno on a whim, and warned him never to return. Rito admits that he cannot make himself cross the boundary again. Gio answers by hoisting the much larger man onto her back and carrying him toward town. Hallie called adventurers selfish. Yet, his daughter wants her journey to help every person she meets. She refuses to abandon either dreams or people and intends to build an adventure Hallie can respect. Reno calls her selfish, but his resistance weakens enough to start giving directions. Near the cavern, unstable ground continues breaking beneath their feet. Reno uses his beetle strength to keep them balanced as they hurry toward the battle below. Narade charges through another forest of stone spikes. Every surface answers Chalk's command, forcing him to dodge while searching for a path to the Dragon Knight. Each destroyed formation is replaced by several more. The coral dragon is turning the cavern into an inexhaustible weapon and slowly wearing Narade down. Chalk admits that no opponent has survived this long, then pretends to be bored. He collapses more of the chamber to end the contest. The stone beneath Narade crumbles, and his strength suddenly disappears. Chalk reveals that rock can hide deadlier properties than petrification. By decomposing limestone, Chalk flooded the chamber with carbon dioxide and displaced its oxygen. Narade's blurred vision and failing muscles come from suffocation, his opponent's favorite method of execution. Unable to move or breathe, Narade fears he will die before learning his identity. His fading thought is an apology to Gio for ending their journey here. A voice in the darkness commands him to open his eyes and evolve if he wants to live. Something buried inside the amnesiac dragonfolk answers. A vast hostile presence swallows the chamber. When Narade reappears wrapped in a monstrous dragon aura, even Chalk can only ask what he truly is. Nereid moves faster than Chalk can follow and strikes him repeatedly across the cavern. The opponent who was suffocating moments earlier has become something far more dangerous. Chalk crashes through the ruins without seeing a single attack. The man who controlled every stone in the cave can no longer track the enemy standing before him. Desperate, Chalk petrifies Narade again, but the transformed body tears free. Refusing to lose his royal zodiac dream to a nameless wanderer, he commits to one last reckless strike. Narade brushes it aside and mocks the title Chalk worships. Stone continues spreading across his body, yet his awakened strength overwhelms the coral dragon's technique. He remembers Gio, asking whether his ability involved more than strength. Narade suspected he had forgotten how to use his own power, but curiosity alone could not unlock the missing knowledge. Now the levitating ruins awaken an anger that feels centuries old. The emotion surges through Narade's power and crushes everything within reach. Chalk protests that no known dragon ability behaves this way. Narade has no explanation. He never claimed to understand himself, as the battlefield breaks beneath them. With Chalk defeated, Narade collapses. Schmidt steps from hiding, catches him by the clothes, and studies the unknown dragonfolk, who has just overturned every rule of his research. Narade awakens inside Yubale's clinic, with a nurse watching over him. The quiet room confirms that he survived, but not how he escaped the cavern, or what happened after he collapsed. Schmidt sits beside the bed and asks about his pain, claiming he was merely another person inside the cave. When Narade says he feels fine, Gio celebrates and addresses their suspicious visitor by name. Schmidt openly introduces himself as a researcher who loves dragons and wants to document every species and ability. Yubal's people applaud him as a hero for removing the tyrants, while Gio remains bewildered by his sudden popularity. Within 25 hours, Schmidt has repaired walls, restored the clinic, and made himself popular throughout Yubale. He now denies supporting Chalk, dismissing prestige, power, and grudges as pointless burdens. Narade accepts Schmidt because the townspeople now like him, but Gio still senses danger. Schmidt denies ever serving Yuri, admitting only that he appears on the government's elimination list. Just as Reno finally returns to Yubale, the residents apologize for believing false memories and welcome Reno home with a bizarre headstand of repentance. Schmidt watches the reconciliation unfold, though his shape-shifting antics make the heartfelt moment as ridiculous as possible. Schmidt brazenly claims that Reno must have misremembered his connection to Yuri and offers a hollow apology for the danger. Gio recognizes another lie, while the scientist focuses entirely on Narade's unknown power. Schmidt readily offers Yubale back to Reno, insisting he never wanted the territory. Then he kneels before Nereid and begs to join the journey, convinced by the cavern battle that studying this unknown dragonfolk up close will transform his research. Geo refuses because Schmidt is shady and cannot lead them to Yuri, but Nereid remembers they need knowledgeable allies. He proposes simply beating the scientist if he acts strangely, while Schmidt announces that he has completely reformed overnight. Geo rejects that convenient redemption. Repairs and compensation cannot erase how easily Schmidt trampled human feelings for his own goals. And even if Yubale forgives him, she does not want such a person on her adventure. Schmidt calmly suspends the negotiation rather than concede defeat. Calling himself a liar who nevertheless keeps promises, he says there is one final piece of aftermath everyone must handle. The aftermath is Chalk, still alive and moving despite Nereid's assault. Schmidt steps toward the ruined Dragon Knight and asks the others to leave the remaining problem to him. A battered Chalk appears in Yubale and challenges Reno to duel for control of the town. Reno freezes before the monster who traumatized him, unable to imagine how he could fight such an opponent. The townspeople stand beside Reno and collectively surrender, rather than abandon him again. They tell Chalk they will not return to digging or submit alone, forcing the tyrant to confront an entire community instead of one frightened knight. They admit it was wrong to place every burden on a young man simply because he was their dragon knight. Yubale belongs to all of them, and they will share its fate, though Nereid refuses to let that fate become a mass death. Encouraged by their trust, Reno reveals his rhinoceros beetle dragon form, powerful enough to lift 20 times his body weight. The timid exile suddenly looks like Yubale's true protector, and Geo orders him to show everyone who leads the town. Reno crushes Chalk with one decisive blow, restoring the confidence Schmidt's deception stole from him. The residents celebrate their #1 knight, while Nereid welcomes Reno home and asks what future he wants to build. Away from the crowd, Schmidt confirms the plan succeeded and complains that impersonating the defeated Chalk was an unpleasant role. By staging one final duel, he returned both Yubale's authority and Reno's self-belief to normal. After several days helping the city recover, Geo and Nereid depart with Reno's map toward another town 3 days away. They hope a larger destination will offer new information about Yuri, but adventure soon makes the route less straightforward. Schmidt appears behind them and again insists on joining. Nereid accepts because researching his mysterious power aligns with his own search for identity, and a knowledgeable scientist could be useful despite Geo's furious objection. Geo sets strict terms. Schmidt is not yet a comrade, she will not rescue him, and trouble means leaving him behind. He accepts, knowing she understands the pain of denied curiosity, then uses Reno's map to guide their complicated route. 3 days later, the new trio reaches an enormous bridge and a bustling railway station. Geo sees a real locomotive for the first time, amazed by both the machine and the crowds filling its platforms. They buy tickets for Grib, the northern town where Yuri once lived. The train will carry them around the mountain range and into the Scorpio region, making this their most promising lead yet. Schmidt warns that Yuri's name is infamous, and anyone tied to him should understand the danger. Before Geo can question his claimed ignorance again, the departure bell rings. Missing this train means waiting until tomorrow. A desperate crowd blocks the platform, and polite begging fails to open a path. Geo considers destroying the station, but Schmidt offers a subtler idea. Make everyone ahead genuinely want to help them board. Schmidt tries emotional persuasion, while Nereid solves the congestion by physically launching obstructing passengers aside. The crowd flees his terrifying assistance, and the trio reaches the train with seconds to spare. Once aboard, they catch their breath and admire scenery, racing past without any visible steam engine. Geo insists authenticity made their act convincing, while Nereid suggests throwing people was the only part that truly worked. Their questionable ticket arrangement soon emerges. Schmidt has been exploiting shapeshifting to pose as children or elderly passengers and claim free services. Geo realizes their clever new guide may also be an expert fare dodger. Schmidt demonstrates an illusion that conceals his tail, then offers Nereid something more useful. Dragonfolk can supposedly become fully human by suppressing their dragon power, a technique even more specialized than disguise. The principle is simple, but the control extremely difficult. like telling someone to stop their own heartbeat. Narade has never heard of it, yet Schmidt is certain his unusual strength makes him capable of learning. Suppressing power also means being able to draw it out deliberately on a far greater scale. Schmidt tells Narade that he is still hiding his true potential and admits that mystery fascinates him. Their lesson stops when the conductor asks for tickets. Geo realizes she may have dropped them earlier, and Schmidt warns that capture would expose their names, turning a minor mistake into another crisis. Before the conductor can react, a wanted bandit leader grabs Geo and calls her a traitor. The fugitive holds her hostage, threatening anyone who interferes while trying to force the train to stop. Narade calmly approaches, amused that another fugitive happens to share their carriage. The bandit warns that one more step will kill Geo, but her companion refuses to let him escape in peace. The captor dares Narade to try, believing the hostage prevents any attack. Beneath the carriage, Narade's concealed tail curves around the floor and positions itself beyond the man's line of sight. In a blur, the tail erupts behind the bandit and Narade intercepts his weapon. Geo is pulled safely away before the fugitive understands how his supposedly perfect hostage shield was broken. The conductor thanks them for stopping the criminal, but their missing tickets and the floor Narade destroyed cannot be ignored. Instead of earning a free ride, the trio must pay for repairs and continue the journey on foot. Geo bitterly watches the train disappear after waiting years to ride one. She blames Narade for smashing the carriage, while he argues that rescuing her was more important than any hindsight-based complaint. Schmidt offers to create illusory money for the compensation, but Geo refuses crime and demands a clean adventure. Narade then smells a nearby river, only for Schmidt to reveal the odor is sewage discharged from the passing train. A brilliant heat trail crosses overhead as the cane dragon flies above the kingdom. Normally invisible hundreds of miles high, the artificial moon sometimes lowers its route enough for atmospheric heat to reveal its path. Geo notes that the dragon's eye once descended only every few days, but its appearances have recently become much more frequent. It feels as though something below has captured the weapon's attention. With darkness approaching, the trio makes camp and plans to find another station in the morning. A distant light on the horizon first resembles a train, until Geo realizes it is a star. Under the clear sky, Geo explains that starlight shows the ancient past because it travels from unimaginable distances. Narade listens while she shares knowledge gained from books she read beneath the cloudy skies of home. Geo dismisses that knowledge as something anyone could learn and admits a growing fear. Since leaving the island, Narade has repeatedly saved her while she has only held him back. He immediately calls that conclusion stupid. Narade recalls how she carried a terrified Reno toward danger and consistently listens to people he could never help alone. He invited Geo because lets him understand far more of the world, not because she needed protection. By morning, the travelers finally spot their destination beyond the ridge. Geo races forward, while even Narade is stunned by the impossible city suspended inside the canyon. Grib is the world's only mid-air city, built across enormous mushroom platforms and known as the Fungus Kingdom. Streets and homes cling to living structures towering above the depths. Farther north, drunken criminals in a remote village laugh at a woman's claim that a dragon knight will save her. Their jokes end when a quiet female traveler observes them from inside the tavern. A booklover asks the loud men to speak softly, but they boast that dragonfolk knights provide protection and demand gratitude. Her calm warning only irritates them into revealing their violent nature. The thugs mock the woman and proudly confirm that they are dragon knights. Delighted that years of foreshadowing in her book are paying off, she closes it and prepares to show them what a genuine knight looks like. The stranger moves before the men can react, cutting through their formation with precise, effortless attacks. Their swagger collapses the moment she decides there is no reason to hold back. One assailant grabs for her, only to be driven through the room alongside his companions. The lone survivor stares at the blood and broken teeth, finally realizing whom he provoked. After finishing every thug, the woman wipes vulgar blood from her beloved paper bookmark and regrets soiling it. Even this distant village, she sighs, has produced more work for her. She introduces herself as Antares, a royal zodiac and direct retainer of the Dragon King. To the woman seeing her harassed, she calls herself the Grim Reaper summoned by those false knights and offers their defeat as an apology. Yerkes finally reaches Antares' workshop after searching for days. She says she sensed an immense presence hours earlier. Proof that Nereid has made his move, and that a larger confrontation is approaching. Meanwhile, Geo, Nereid, and Schmidt enter Grib and discover its platforms are living mushrooms descending deep into the canyon. The scale of the city leaves even the scientist eager to explain. These mushrooms are remnants of dragon power rather than natural organisms. They begin soft, harden as they mature, and have continued growing for centuries, forming nearly every road and structure in the mid-air city. Schmidt explains that Grib once belonged to a royal zodiac, one of 12 dragon knights selected as the strongest in each region. Each is a military asset comparable to the carrier fleets of global superpowers. Even after the Industrial Revolution, those 12 warriors help Laniakea stand against other nations. The mushrooms are scars from the original Knight Grib's battles, still proliferating hundreds of years after his death. Seeking Yuri, the trio questions older residents, who might remember when he lived there. Most deny knowing anything, until one mustached man reacts sharply to the forbidden name. The man calls Yuri the trash who killed the Dragon King and refuses to reopen the past. Grib's reputation has only begun recovering after 6 painful years, so residents want the notorious adventurer forgotten. A tremor ripples through the mushroom platforms, and everyone braces for danger. The culprit is far less dramatic. Nereid's stomach is rebelling, and he urgently asks where to find a toilet. Geo is suffering too after secretly nibbling one of the mushroom platforms, and the local toilets are communal and distant. Schmidt presses her about the distrust she still carries even after relying on him. When Geo demands his true objective, Schmidt says he is the same as her father. His life's goal is solving the Dragon Source, the centuries-old mystery behind dragonfolk themselves. The Dragon Source asks when dragonfolk and their powers first appeared, yet no records or physical traces remain anywhere in Laniakea. Yuri began wrestling with this greatest secret more than 10 years ago. According to the official story, Yuri went mad 6 years earlier, destroyed his research, stormed the palace, and slaughtered the Dragon King alongside hundreds of guards. The catastrophe became known as the King Killing. Geo asks why this ancient research concerns her amnesiac companion. Schmidt finally reveals the central truth behind his interest. Nereid was the most crucial subject in Yuri's investigation. Schmidt learned that fact 4 years ago and has searched for Nereid ever since Yuri and the research vanished. He then walks away, claiming the explanation is complete, while Geo protests that it has only created more questions. Schmidt says this is the perfect moment to be honest. Nereid is his objective, while Geo and friendship mean nothing beyond convenience. If she obstructs his research, he will remove the obstacle by any means necessary. Geo apologizes for demanding his feelings while distrusting him, and Schmidt calls her concern hypocritical. Still, she draws a firm boundary. This is her adventure, and she will never let his objective control its course. Nereid finally returns after an extraordinarily long bathroom visit and announces that he enjoyed a great rest, prompting a crude correction from Geo. Relieved and hungry, he treats the painful mushroom lesson as another discovery. The travelers find Grib's famous giant octopus balls, each containing an entire octopus. Unfortunately, the shop draws a massive daily queue and limits every customer to a single serving. After waiting an hour, the food begins selling out, yet Geo refuses to abandon the line because she controls their money. Watching her determination, Schmidt asks Nereid why he took this supposedly ordinary girl away from her island. Nereid's goals are finding Yuri and recovering his identity, tasks he could pursue alone. When Schmidt suggests Geo may be a burden, Nereid immediately prepares to prove exactly why she belongs beside him. Their answer appears when an elderly woman collapses nearby. Everyone in line whispers, but refuses to lose a coveted place, while Geo sees the helpless stranger and pushes through the crowd without hesitation. The waiting customers justify doing nothing because the woman has been there for hours, and someone else might help. Geo abandons her position, kneels beside her, and offers aid despite the meal she has waited so long to buy. Geo says she moved before thinking, because helping felt like the right thing to do. Nereid praises her spirit, while Schmidt offers assistance, only to be reminded that earning her trust will take far more than one convenient gesture. After ensuring the woman is safe, Geo returns exhausted but satisfied. In gratitude, The locals present the trio with a spectacular giant octopus ball, turning her sacrificed place in line into an even better meal. Schmidt compares the dish and concedes that it surpasses the other shop in both size and appearance. More importantly, Gio's compassion brought them somewhere none could have reached alone, proving Nereid was right to trust her. The woman's son apologizes for his earlier hostility and thanks the tourists who helped his mother. When Gio asks again about Yuri, his gratitude finally opens a door the town's resentment kept closed. Because Yuri once lived in Grib, the man knows where his abandoned home stands. He agrees to guide the travelers there, giving them the first physical place directly connected to Gio's father. Yuri's house lies deep in the old district, almost completely swallowed by a forest of enormous mushrooms. What remains looks less like a home than a ruin being reclaimed by living dragon power. The fungi never stop growing and resist even dynamite, having consumed entire settlements over centuries. Night Grib's power continues reshaping the city long after his death, preserving and destroying at the same time. Gio reconsiders Yuri's dream message. If he truly wanted them uninvolved, he could have left them ignorant. Instead, he deliberately brought Gio and Nereid together, almost as though challenging them to find him. Inside the house, they discover nothing, because government investigators searched every corner years ago. Gio refuses to leave, convinced that Yuri would not guide them here without hiding something the authorities missed. Schmidt agrees that Yuri may have anticipated this exact situation and concealed vital information. While Gio and Nereid search the interior, he circles outside to secure the area. The first floor offers no clues, and Nereid becomes distracted by ants spinning a grasshopper. Gio's confidence fades, as their serious investigation threatens to become another tour of strange insects. Nereid argues that adventurers succeed because they are persistent, and the search finally pays off. Hidden beneath the growth, they uncover a marked door leading deeper into the house. Gio imagines a secret room filled with dragon source documents left specifically for Yuri's daughter. With mounting excitement, she opens the mysterious door, while Schmidt notices danger outside. A suspicious shadow appears where no animal should be, and a sudden attack tears through the ruins. Schmidt's decoy is destroyed, confirming that someone has been stalking the house and waiting for the travelers to separate. Schmidt reveals that the victim was only a shadow created by his ability, and taunts the attacker for being easily deceived. When she refuses to answer, he reaches to investigate her identity himself. A dense mist begins spreading through the old district, signaling that the enemy's operation has started. Schmidt urgently warns the others to return before the trap closes around them. Inside the hidden chamber, an old book falls from nowhere and lands before Gio. Its cover bears the title GALAXIAS, suggesting Yuri preserved a message in a form only she would recognize. Gio reaches toward the mysterious volume, sensing that something within it is responding to her presence. Before she can examine the discovery, the entire house begins to rupture. The hidden chamber erupts, blasting Gio through Yuri's ruined home. A poised swordswoman steps from the smoke and says she has waited a long time to meet Gio Holst. She is Antares, a royal zodiac serving the dragon government. Standing over Gio with a drawn blade, she formally announces the girl's execution. Nereid intercepts the sword and orders Gio not to move. By placing himself between them, he forces the government executioner to fight the mysterious wave dragon first. Antares asks whether Gio ran away with a boyfriend and received her father's permission. Nereid answers with a charge, while she greets him like a troublesome child from her past. Their first collision shatters the mushroom-covered ruins. Nereid brings overwhelming force, but Antares absorbs it with controlled sword work and calmly measures his speed. The blast rises above Grib's abandoned district. Residents watch the platforms tremble and realize the young travelers have become trapped in a battle far beyond local control. Gio recognizes Royal Zodiac as a title reserved for the kingdom's strongest dragon knights. When Antares sheathes her swords, Gio briefly wonders why an elite executioner would disarm herself. Antares answers with her long skeletal tail, whipping it through the ruins and launching Nereid through stone. Her body is every bit as dangerous as her blades. Nereid recovers in mid-air, but the segmented tail changes direction and streaks it again. Its immense reach moves with precision, unlike anything he has encountered. A third blow drives him into the ground. Gio understands that Nereid absorbed the entire sequence to prevent even one attack from reaching her. Watching closely, Schmidt notices that Nereid can perceive attacks too fast to hear. He asks whether Geo must die, and Antares changes the order to capture so the government can decide her fate. Antares admits that she first intended to sever Geo's legs, but now requires her alive. She will not explain how the government found them, only that their opposing sides are unmistakable. Nereid strikes back and orders Geo to hide. Protecting her remains his priority, even when creating distance gives Antares another opening. Before anyone sees her move, Antares appears beside Geo. Nereid catches the descending blade and again orders his partner away, while the knight studies his determination to protect her. Nereid grips the weapon and throws Antares back, declaring that she is blocking their adventure. The collision cuts another trench through the old district. This opponent bears no resemblance to Yerkes, Suzy, or Chalk. If a royal zodiac continues hunting them, Geo will never be safe, so Nereid decides to end the pursuit here. He promises Geo that they will meet again and turns fully toward Antares. She pursues at once while Schmidt warns that their battle could collapse the entire platform. Nereid pins his blade near Antares and threatens to obliterate her if she moves. Unmoved, she spreads her tail across the ruins and invites him to prove the threat. They charge together. Raw, instinctive power collides with the discipline of a royal zodiac and detonates across the mushroom platform. Antares slips under his guard, but Nereid adjusts and cuts her face. Instead of retreating, she smiles at the rare sight of her own blood. Her complete dragon form expands behind her, confirming Schmidt's warning. Nereid now understands that the kingdom's elite warrior has only begun to use her strength. Tail and twin blades attack in perfect coordination. Nereid meets all three weapons head-on as the duel escalates, beyond anything Grib can withstand. Antares moves with enough speed and power to erase structures behind every swing. Nereid dodges by instinct, yet each apparent opening closes before he reaches it. He plans to evade her blade and strike the exposed guard. Antares built a second attack into the same motion, and her tail sweeps in from his blind side. The blow sends Nereid tumbling while Antares vanishes from sight. Surrounded by exploding ruins, he braces for an attack whose direction he cannot predict. At the last instant, he traps her blade between his hands. Antares is impressed. The same force would have severed an ordinary person's fingers on contact. Nereid demands to know why Geo should pay for a crime she never committed. Antares answers that Yuri's surviving bloodline threatens the dignity of a kingdom still destabilized by its king's death. Yerkes arrives and asks permission to seize Geo. Antares grants it, leaving Nereid locked against her blade while the vindictive subordinate approaches the girl, calling his captain Big Sis. Yerkes boasts that one victory over him means nothing and says Nereid will die ignorant of his own crimes. Antares sharply warns him not to reveal too much. Her colossal tail coils around Nereid and crushes him into the broken ground. Pinned beneath the royal zodiac, he must somehow continue the duel and reach Geo at the same time. Antares believes Yuri deliberately reunited Nereid with his daughter. Before the King Killer's plan can unfold, she intends to erase the amnesiac man and every memory he might recover. Still pinned, Nereid catches another crushing strike and answers with raw force. The ground bursts apart as he refuses to let Antares define his forgotten past. Nereid says she should have explained the accusations sooner. His sharpened resolve forces Antares back into the clash, and for the first time she admits that the fight has become interesting. Elsewhere on the platform, Geo searches the connected mushrooms for an escape. Every route feels blocked by the same terrifying thought. A royal zodiac may kill Nereid before she can help. She tries to remain rational, but every recent crisis would have ended without him. Geo has never seen Nereid struggle like this, and once again she is the person being saved. Geo trips over the broken stone and cannot even pull herself upright. Shame and frustration close in while the battle continues without her. Antares mocks Nereid's fading strength and prepares to finish him. Hearing the struggle, Geo realizes that escaping now may erase her only chance to change the outcome. Running would be safer, but she cannot abandon him. Geo turns away from the escape route and races back toward the monsters fighting behind her. She promised to become Nereid's equal, not a child who always depends on him. If this journey is to mean anything, she cannot stand aside while her partner dies. At the same moment, Antares pins Nereid again and notices that he is still holding back. She asks whether protecting Geo is the weakness preventing him from fighting freely. Nereid declares that Geo will travel the entire world and cannot die here. He invites Antares to keep cutting until she kills him, certain he will resist every blow. Antares swings to grant that wish, but Geo charges between them and stops the execution. To everyone's disbelief, the human girl announces that Antares should fight her instead. Geo checks that Nereid is conscious and proudly says she came to save him. Her courage is real, even if stepping between two dragonfolk has made the situation more dangerous. Nereid can only ask why she ignored his order to run. Geo offers no excuse. Abandoning him was never an option she could accept. Antares attacks before the reunion can continue. Nereid sees the blade heading for Geo and throws his battered body into its path. The strike tears through Nereid and sprays blood across Geo's face. He collapses beside her, revealing the horrifying cost of her return. Geo screams his name as blood spreads over the shattered ground. Antares reminds Nereid that he invited every cut, yet he still struggles to rise. Antares mocks him for nearing death after a single clean slice. Geo grabs Nereid and desperately drags him away, rather than watch the execution. The rescue carries Geo directly into Yerkes' reach. He seizes her, thanks her for saving him the chase, and orders Antares to finish Nereid. Before the blade falls, a blast rips through the ruins and knocks Antares back. An unidentified rescuer reaches the dying Nereid in the confusion. Smoke clears around the intruder's grin, and Antares recognizes Schmidt Zachman. The scientist has returned at the exact moment Nereid needs him most. Schmidt postpones the explanation, while Antares says she already dispatched someone to kill him. With both government fighters closing in, the ground begins to rumble beneath all five of them. The damaged foundation collapses. Geo apologizes for drawing Nereid into the disaster and begs Schmidt to save him, even if rescuing one person means abandoning the other. Schmidt makes the brutal choice and grabs Nereid. As the ruins fall away, he orders the wounded man to forget Geo, while she accepts capture with a final gentle smile. Yuri's home disappears into a vast crater of broken cliffs and dust. When the collapse ends, Geo and Nereid have been torn apart once again. Far away on the island, Patrick, one of Hallie's old friends, shares a late-night drink with him and asks whether the house feels lonely without Geo. Hallie's grumbling answer cannot hide how deeply he misses her. Hallie admits that every day since Geo's departure has been filled with regret and doubt. Still, she chose this adventure through her own will and strength, so his duty as her parent is to trust her and wait for her return. That hope contrasts sharply with reality. Geo wakes alone inside a reinforced prisoner transport carriage. Antares watches from across the compartment and calmly asks how she feels, confirming that the government now has her completely contained. The scene returns to the moments after Nereid's battle. When the fractured ground, nearly dragged, the government knights down with it. Antares pulls Yerkes to safety, and he apologizes for allowing Schmidt to interfere. Once the dust settles, Antares confronts Schmidt Zachman directly. He tries to joke his way through the encounter, but she makes it clear that the lofty royal zodiac knows exactly who this notorious researcher is. Antares recalls how Schmidt infiltrated the knighthood's intelligence bureau and stole classified material 4 years earlier. Schmidt shamelessly calls it a protest against government control, insisting that knowledge should belong to everyone. The jokes end when Antares identifies Schmidt's true obsession. Yuri Holst spent his final years pursuing the dragon source, and Nereid holds the key to that mystery. Schmidt admits such an irresistible story is precisely why he came. Kerner argues that anyone who humiliates her mistress must die, but Schmidt ridicules that childish devotion. His name is already on the government's elimination list, he adds, so they hardly need another excuse. With the battlefield collapsing, Schmidt prepares to withdraw. Acting on Antares' order, Kerner casts the spider dragon's veil, wrapping him in adhesive silk that cannot be cut or peeled away. Even while trapped, the obsessed researcher bombards Kerner with questions about how her body produces the silk. His invasive curiosity earns a furious rebuke, yet Schmidt seems more interested in her biology than his impending death. When Kerner tightens the web, Schmidt springs a countertrap beneath it. An explosion bursts below the silk, exposing mushrooms he planted under the rubble, and forcing Antares to shield herself. Schmidt admits Antares would be fascinating to investigate, but Nereid is an even greater prize. He bids her farewell, warns her to watch her step, and triggers the field of enormous mushroom bombs to cover his escape. The mushrooms prove to be flash grenades rather than lethal explosives. Antares protects her eyes, but the blast ruptures her right ear, and she grudgingly recognizes that Schmidt's ridiculous appearance hides a dangerously cunning mind. Kerner questions why Antares allowed Schmidt to escape, but the captain values her subordinate's safety above wounded pride. More importantly, their main objective is complete. Geo is securely in government custody. Back in the transport carriage, Antares explains that the Dragon King government will judge Geo after holding her inside Antares' territory. Geo immediately demands to know where they are taking a supposed criminal for trial. Antares insists the government is not a gang of kidnappers, and that Geo, as the King Killer's daughter, is the villain here. Whether used to lure Yuri out or executed directly, betrayal of the world can have only one ending. The threat finally breaks Geo's composure. Through tears, she admits she acted recklessly and fears that her mistake got Nereid killed, while Antares listens without offering the devastated prisoner any comfort. At that moment, Yerkes returns with unexpected news. Searchers reached the bottom of the collapsed valley, yet found neither Nereid nor Schmidt beneath the rubble. Men that troublesome could not have vanished without leaving a trace. Antares concludes that both fugitives are alive and apologizes for underestimating them. Hearing those words, Geo's despair instantly changes into hope, because the partner she thought she had sacrificed may still be coming back. Elsewhere, Nereid opens his eyes inside an unfamiliar room. Schmidt greets him with a casual good morning, though the agony running through Nereid's reconstructed body makes it far too early to celebrate. The residents rush in, relieved to see Nereid awake after the earthquake. They explain that the strange scholars carried him home covered in blood, leaving everyone terrified that he would never survive the night. Nereid realizes he is in Schmidt's house and somehow still alive. A warning not to touch the unstable splice comes too late, and the writhing mass attached to his shoulder reveals just how bizarre his rescue truly was. Panicking that a mad scientist has altered him, Nereid attacks Schmidt. The researcher explains that his severed arm was lost, so he used the Mugina dragon's power to transform an octopus tentacle into an emergency replacement. Schmidt assures him the limb's excellent nervous system will soon adapt, and even forget it began as an octopus leg. Nereid barely cares about the miracle. The only answer he wants is Geo's location. Schmidt admits he tried to retrieve her, but could do nothing. As the King Killer's daughter, Geo is almost certain to receive the death penalty when her imminent trial is held in the royal capital, Catasteris. Nereid immediately rises to go after her, despite barely being able to stand. Schmidt warns that he needs several more days of rest, but Nereid has no intention of remaining still while Geo awaits execution. Nereid insists his wounds have healed and shouts that Geo will be taken away and killed. Schmidt calmly corrects his confused geography, confirms he has not recovered, and tells him to abandon Geo and continue the search instead. Schmidt points out that Nereid could not touch Antares even at full strength, so charging back with these wounds would achieve nothing but another defeat. Nereid argues that he cannot know the outcome until he tries. Nereid declares that only he decides how to use his body, especially while Geo waits for him. Schmidt counters that he is the one who saved that body, and suggests this is the perfect time to reconsider whether Nereid truly needs her. According to Schmidt, Geo's impulsiveness created their hopeless situation. Without her, Nereid could at least have escaped. He urges Nereid to stop repeating the mistake and admit his real feelings, but the argument only enrages him. Nereid rejects the claim that Geo was merely an obstacle to investigating his past. He will rescue her and continue searching for Yuri, doing both rather than sacrificing either, and if Schmidt dislikes that answer, he can leave. Schmidt knocks the weakened Nereid down and exposes the ugly truth. A repurposed wooden brace supports his leg. Transformed paste seals his wounds, and altered pig's blood keeps him alive. He is nowhere near healed. Even so, Schmidt will not forbid the rescue. He warns that humans possess only 2 arms and must choose what to carry, promising to reclaim every life-saving modification if Nereid abandons the truth before achieving anything. That ultimatum makes Schmidt reconsider why Nereid chose Geo as his companion. Though he initially dismissed her as boring and full of excuses, he has seen that her desires and decisions belong entirely to her. Schmidt now admits he judged her wrongly. One wrong step could have killed Geo during the collapse, yet her resolve made her seem more intensely alive than anyone else on that battlefield. Nereid finally states what matters. He wants to discover who he is with Geo beside him. Since Schmidt gave him this life and body, he asks to borrow them once more, accepting even death without regret. The declaration drains the last of Nereid's strength, and he collapses into Schmidt's arms. For once, the eccentric researcher falls silent as he considers the conviction of the man he rebuilt. After another night, Schmidt's transformed replacement has adapted until Nereid's arm looks almost normal, though returning sensation makes it unbearably itchy. The residents claim the scholar has already left. That claim lasts only seconds. Schmidt strolls back into the room, explaining that after Nereid rejected his advice, he had no reason to reject the villagers' request for help. His return confirms he has chosen to join the rescue. Schmidt dumps supplies before Nereid and mocks the idea of marching to war with nothing but a willingness to die. If death is the likely result, proper preparation is the only way to improve their chances, so the pair set out together. Meanwhile, Geo's transport climbs through the mountains and will reach the surface in 2 hours. She longs to escape the suffocating carriage, while Antares lightly complains that her prisoner's gloomy face is ruining the journey. The train emerges into the snowbound Scorpio region, northernmost of the 12 night domains. Antares marvels at the endless white landscape and demands some reaction, but Geo remains sunk in dark thoughts. A message suddenly reaches Antares. After reading the notification, she tells Geo that they will be delayed, leaving the bundled prisoner to wonder what could possibly have interrupted a royal zodiac's schedule. Outside, the reason becomes visible. The train has halted beside a remote mountain station, with a towering cloud still rising over the frozen horizon. Their route north is no longer proceeding as planned. Certain that Geo cannot escape, Antares removes her chains according to a personal rule against needless restraints. Her private question about whether they will come shows that she is already expecting rescuers. Near the damaged route, Nereid and Schmidt learn that an unscheduled train from the earthquake passed north toward Antares' base in Kreneka. Schmidt predicts Geo will be held there before transfer to Catasteris, giving them a destination. The railway workers warn that repairs will make the journey slower, then wish Nereid luck against Antares. He admits that overthinking everything would drive him mad. For now, he simply knows he must move forward and stay alive. Before they part, one worker reveals that he once met Yuri Holst and never believed such a decent man could murder anyone. The small testimony strengthens Nereid's resolve, and he promises they will meet again with Geo beside him. Their departure is interrupted by a terrifying warning. A dragon knight is cutting a path straight toward Grib. While Schmidt urges them onward, news that the intruder has already torn through the mountains freezes everyone in place. The attacker is Drill, the mole dragon knight, sent by Yerkes to kill an orange-haired fugitive near death. Promised control of the region, he leads a mob of criminals who eagerly dream of stealing, kidnapping, and killing without restraint. Nereid walks directly into the gang's path. Drill senses that he is dragonfolk and casually offers him a place in the crew, only for Nereid to answer that he already has an urgent job involving someone exactly like Drill. Drill responds by enlarging his arm into a monstrous digging limb and swinging it down with crushing force. The mountainside disappears beneath its shadow, but Nereid plants himself before the blow instead of retreating. Despite his patched-up body, Nereid catches the enormous limb and redirects its power. Drill's confidence turns to shock as the supposed dying fugitive proves strong enough to challenge a dragon knight head-on. Their collision rips a vast trench through the valley, launching Earth high enough to be seen from Geo's moving train. Watching the distant destruction, she quietly asks Antares whether the people she is waiting for will truly come. Nereid escapes the clash using his transformed dragon body and roars for Geo to wait for him. Schmidt questions whether this counts as using his new strength properly, while Antares smiles aboard the train. The storm she anticipated is drawing close. The transport reaches Kreneka, Antares' domain, in the kingdom's frozen far north. Railway lines stretch across an immense industrial fortress, revealing just how heavily defended Geo's temporary prison will be. Geo stares in disbelief at an ocean frozen solid beneath the city. As the convoy moves through snow, Kreneka's workers stop to watch the famous Royal Zodiac return with her mysterious prisoner. Antares enters her private quarters expecting solitude, but an unseen guest welcomes her home. The familiar voice immediately irritates her, suggesting this intrusion comes from someone powerful enough to ignore ordinary boundaries. The visitor appears as Alreska, the lightning dragon knight, and another royal zodiac directly serving the Dragon King. She embraces Antares dramatically, claiming every moment of her long absence felt like eternity. Antares refuses to call the intruder by name after she entered without permission and contacted her unofficially. Alresha then reveals the stranger truth. This is not her real body, but a projection sent from far away. Alresha's true self is 1,500 kilometers south in Pisces waters. Using an electrical cable along the ocean floor, she transmits a perfect image, voice, and personality. Technology no cable could previously survive under her current. Even the unpleasant ozone odor accompanying Alresha has been replicated, to her embarrassment. Antares acknowledges the feat, but refuses to indulge the performance any longer, demanding the real reason for this elaborate visit. Alresha says a simple call lacked the warmth of speaking face-to-face. More importantly, she wanted a direct conversation about the adventurer, whose shadow still hangs over the entire kingdom. Yuri Holst. 6 years earlier, the 28th Dragon King, Polaris Catasteris, was murdered. The government named Yuri as the suspect, and eliminating the fugitive king killer has remained its greatest unresolved problem ever since. The official case seems convincing. Yuri was friendly with the king, could easily enter the palace, and vanished after the massacre. Antares sees no reason to repeat facts already accepted by the kingdom's 196 million citizens. Yet Alresha stresses the impossible scale of the crime. Polaris, 7 former royal zodiacs, and nearly 200 people were slaughtered inside the palace. Could one ordinary adventurer truly erase that much power without effort? Because both women joined the reorganized royal zodiacs after the massacre, Alresha proposes investigating the disputed truth together. Antares dismisses the pretense, especially once Alresha asks what she has learned about Geo. Antares intends to end the traitor's bloodline and prove she has the will to become the next Dragon King. Alresha has no interest in the throne, but her parting question lands harder. Will Nereid Kuiper come to Kreneka? Alresha reveals that Nereid was the late king's untitled personal guard and closest attendant, a man erased from public records who disappeared after the murders. Now he travels beside Yuri's daughter, and she offers to help capture him. Antares rejects the offer and releases a pulse of power that sends her enormous serpent-like tail crashing through the chamber. The violent response shows how deeply Alresha's doubts and Nereid's hidden identity have struck a nerve. With her strength surging, Antares stares down the distant projection and asks a chilling question. Does Alresha genuinely believe she will lose when Nereid comes for Geo? Alresha claims she merely offered an option and fully trusts Antares' power. As the local dragon pulse grows unstable, the projection ends, leaving Antares alone amid the destruction, and promising a more public conversation next time. An attendant enters and begins deodorizing the room after Alresha's ozone-filled projection. Though she understands Antares' anger, she warns that her mistress is too powerful to activate her abilities recklessly inside their own stronghold. When Antares asks about Geo, the attendant reports that soldiers handed her to Yerkes. He has already taken the prisoner below Kreneka and begun questioning her, far from any convenient escape route. In the fortress's vast underground pipeworks, Yerkes acknowledges Antares' instruction not to let Geo flee. He seats her among the tangled machinery and announces that he has several questions of his own. Elsewhere, a winged adventurer captain returns to his waiting crew and cuts their discussion short. This new faction has also heard about Geo, proving that news of the king killer's daughter is spreading rapidly. The captain confirms seeing a blue-haired girl in Scorpio and realizes Antares hid her arrival from the other regions. Since every neighboring power must know by now, the crew faces a choice about entering an increasingly crowded hunt. They decide to press into Scorpio, despite the risk of provoking surrounding domains, because everyone wants to see this living ghost from the old massacre. Meanwhile, Yerkes proudly shows Geo the cavernous chamber chosen to hold her. Yerkes promises to make Geo reveal everything, but she insists that asking her about the father she never knew is pointless. When she tries to raise a more urgent subject, he smashes the floor and reminds her who controls the interrogation. Yerkes is no longer interested in Yuri. He demands Geo explain her connection to Nereid Kuiper, especially why the former royal attendant appeared on her island and saved her at precisely the right moment. Geo calls their meeting a coincidence, but Yerkes refuses to believe timing that perfect. The question also unsettles her. Nereid never explained why he was on the island, just as she never explained why she returned for him. Unable to contain her fear, Geo asks the only thing that matters to her. Did Nereid die? She lowers her head and begs Yerkes to tell her the truth, whatever it may be. A soldier admits no body was found and that Nereid is probably alive. Yerkes casually notes that the cleanup squad should reach him soon, and with those injuries, he will be unable to resist. Revealing survival may only delay his execution. Another squad returns from the bottom of the ravine, carrying Geo's recovered belongings, including the hidden book. Yerkes dismisses the prisoner, now that he has what he wanted, but his cruel smile promises the interrogation is not truly finished. Yerkes hurls Geo to the floor, then lands on her body to cushion his own fall. He rises unharmed and treats her pain as a trivial convenience. Geo spits that she has hated his superior attitude from the beginning, but Yerkes laughs at her helplessness. When she demands to be addressed as an equal, another savage strike sends her crashing through the machinery. The book titled GALAXIAS tumbles beside them as guards urge Yerkes to calm down. He yanks Geo upright, claiming he is merely teaching an insolent brat about humiliation, while she refuses to accept always being the victim. Yerkes mocks Geo's dream before exposing a sealed version of the massacre. Although the public blames Yuri, the government believes Nereid Kuiper personally killed the Dragon King 6 years ago. Antares interrupts from above and dismisses Yerkes' eloquence as scrap iron. She reports that the cleanup squad sent to Grib has been wiped out, leaving little doubt that Nereid is alive and already coming to save Geo. The revelation leaves Geo weak with shock as Antares notices the fallen GALAXIAS book. While the prisoner is led away, the Royal Zodiac studies its cover, recognizing that Yuri's hidden work may be far more important than it appears. Antares immediately orders tighter security throughout Kraneka. Outside the fortress, an exhausted Nereid and Schmidt trudge through the snow, unaware that their target is already preparing for their arrival. The industrial city shifts into lockdown. Inspection lines form, high-voltage barriers activate, and armed patrols guard every train and gate. Kraneka's vast machinery becomes a fortress designed to detect 2 approaching intruders. Nereid and Schmidt avoid the trains by jumping off early and crossing the snow on foot. Schmidt jokes about Nereid sleeping through the difficult journey, but both know the true rescue begins now. Schmidt makes his conditions clear. He joined for his own reasons, trusts Nereid's resolve, and will retreat if success becomes impossible. He will not waste their strength in pointless battles, because Nereid's life remains in his hands. Their route leads through Kraneka's abandoned industrial sector, a maze of decaying facilities whose full extent no one knows. Schmidt found this forgotten passage on a previous visit, making it ideal for infiltrators like them. Schmidt explains that local counters detect dragonfolk by their energy signatures, so a disguise would not hide him and can only be used once. Then their tunnel cracks open, revealing drifting ice and the frozen ocean directly above them. One breach would drown them in lethally cold seawater, so the pair hurry through and emerge near the deserted industrial wall. Nereid wonders how they can reach Antares without detection, but Schmidt already has another route. A map of unused pipes reveals Kraneka's enormous floor heating network, where factory waste heat circulates beneath the frozen city. Schmidt plans to follow the unmonitored tunnels toward Geo, proving just how dangerous knowledge can be. A lone security guard appears in the bitter wind before they reach the entrance. Schmidt moves first, transforming his hand into a syringe and injecting the man before he can raise an alarm. Schmidt calls the substance a nerve toxin refined from blowfish dragon blood, supposedly capable of causing unconsciousness and heart failure before a victim can scream. Nereid recoils, wondering if this is his first glimpse of murder, then Schmidt admits he lied. This dose only paralyzes the man's limbs and tongue, while the lethal compound is too precious to waste. The joke calms nothing, especially when he asks whether Nereid could kill for Geo. Nereid cannot answer immediately. Before he can decide how far this rescue will push him, Schmidt senses movement nearby and vanishes deeper into the tunnel, leaving that moral question hanging. a heavily equipped security commander arrives. Convinced something slipped through the defenses, his sharp instincts lead him straight toward the hidden passage where Nereid and Schmidt have separated. Schmidt shoves Nereid into another tunnel and orders him to continue alone, warning that discovery would ruin everything. As he stays behind to misdirect the approaching commander, he reminds Nereid not to break his promise. The commander finds an elegant, frightened woman in the snow, Schmidt's transformed disguise. She asks whether he is a dragon knight and thanks him for rescuing her, playing the helpless civilian perfectly. Schmidt claims she became lost while a soldier pestered her, explaining the unconscious guard as an accidental fall. The electric ray dragon offers to escort her out, while Schmidt secretly plans to paralyze him and extract Gio's location. The deception fails at the last instant. The commander recognizes his target and drives a weapon through Schmidt's disguised body, announcing that he saw through the trick from the beginning. He reveals that he is the electric ray dragon and that a hidden counter exposed Schmidt's real form even without its generator. Electricity races through the surrounding pipes as he prepares to kill the infiltrator. Elsewhere, Nereid captures a counter but has no idea how to switch it off. His brute force solution triggers a citywide intruder alert and transforms his dragon tail, sacrificing stealth to keep moving toward Gio. With the alarm blaring, Nereid smashes through the first wave of defenders and charges into Kreneka's industrial heart. Every guard now knows where he is, but the direct path suits his resolve far better than hiding. Security forces are ordered to surround Nereid and stop his advance. Meanwhile, Schmidt survives the ambush and steals the chief guard's transmitter, turning disaster into another opportunity. The stolen device is a dead man's switch that constantly sends a weak signal to headquarters. Marius regains consciousness with astonishing speed, but Kreneka has already received his request to eliminate Schmidt and his unnamed companion. Guard Chief Marius questions why headquarters is hiding the second intruder's identity, yet obeys his captain's order. Nereid rejoins Schmidt, who shrugs off his wound and warns that the cold will kill Marius before help arrives. Instead of leaving him exposed, Nereid moves the injured guard into shelter. He does not claim to be a hero or promise to save everyone, but refuses to let a man die when doing so would end another possible adventure. Asked who he truly is, Nereid admits that is exactly what he hopes to discover. Grateful for the mercy, Marius directs them toward an unused northern factory with few guards, even while apologizing to his captain for betraying security. The remaining soldiers try to stop Nereid and boast that no matter how strong he is, he can never defeat their captain. Nereid crashes through their formation, utterly unimpressed by the threat standing between him and Gio. As the last defenders stare in disbelief, Nereid dismisses them as too boring even to make him yawn. Inside Kreneka's command center, Antares calmly asks for a complete report on everything that followed the breach. Reviewing the previous hour, the command staff confirms that the intruders entered Passage 35 and vanished into the sewers. Antares deduces that Marius guided them to protect civilians, not because he broke under torture. An attendant asks why Antares did not intervene sooner. She explains that Schmidt must die first, because a dragonfolk's power vanishes with its user. Nereid's return proves the Mugina dragon survived and rebuilt him. Antares then reveals a strange metal object recovered from Yuri's former home. It appears ordinary, yet no weapon or analytical device can damage it, or remove even the smallest particle, and its purpose remains completely unknown. The metal reminds Antares of the inhuman look Nereid wore when he tried to kill her 6 years ago. She withheld his identity because they know almost nothing about him, but with Kreneka's defenses breached, she decides to face him personally. A soldier rushes to report, only to find the route littered with defeated guards and marked by Nereid's enormous tail. The rescue has advanced far faster than command expected, and the captain's intervention can no longer be delayed. Electrical warning signals buzz through corridors across the fortress. Patrols awaken, grab their weapons, and converge on the industrial sector, turning every pipe and passage into part of the manhunt. Before the soldiers arrive, a familiar voice stops Nereid. Antares steps from the shadows with a formal greeting he recognizes as the opening to their rematch. She crosses the passage in an instant and drives her weapon toward him. Nereid blocks with blade and tail, but the impact forces him backward through the steel corridor. Cuts and counters blur together, Narade reaches for Antares' weapon, only for her precise control to turn his grip aside before he can exploit it. Antares hooks him off balance and hurls him across the scaffolding. Narade barely catches the steelwork. Determination has not erased the gulf between their skill. He seizes her weapon and punches toward her face. Antares slips away at the last instant, and the missed blow tears through nearby railings. Narade sweeps his armored tail through the structure before she can reset. Antares vaults with its motion, and converts his momentum into another aerial exchange. Their impact buries both fighters beneath shattered metal. Antares rises first and dryly notes that Narade looks far healthier than he did in Grib. Narade emerges with his dragon tail spread across the ruined floor. Antares readies her weapon across the chamber, and the rematch becomes a direct duel. As they clash, Narade recalls the infiltration plan. He will draw every guard in Kreneka while Schmidt searches for Geo. Complaints about the sewer smell did not change his assignment. Schmidt had also warned that Narade was a century too early to defeat Antares. To keep the diversion alive, the scientist prepared a deeply unsettling advantage. His collaborators were cages filled with Kreneka's rapidly breeding rats. Where the city saw vermin, Schmidt saw a supply of living biological material. The animals spread disease and stole food. But Narade still could not understand how they would help. Schmidt answered by raising his modified weapon. Without permission, Schmidt drove the device into Narade's arm and began transferring material from the rats. The terrified patient demanded to know what was entering his body. Schmidt's ability rewrites an object's duty. He converted the rats into compatible organs, muscles, vessels, and nerves, then implanted them as living replacements. Those replacements became emergency spares for any destroyed limb or organ, even the head. Horrified by the sacrifice, Narade ordered him to stop, but Schmidt challenged that hesitation. Narade had already lost once, Schmidt argued, and another honorable defeat would still leave Geo dead. Hallie also awaited answers, so survival was now part of Narade's responsibility. Forced to choose, Narade chose Geo, and the truth waiting beyond her rescue. The implanted parts would take lethal damage before an attack could reach his original body. In the present, Antares tears through replacement after replacement. Every loss causes real pain, but Narade's vital organs survive, allowing him to recover repeatedly. Narade grins and warns her to fight seriously. An unstoppable royal zodiac now faces a challenger who refuses to remain dead. Antares compares him to Frankenstein's monster and wonders where his doctor is hiding. Narade keeps her occupied, buying Schmidt precious time to locate Geo. The power leaking from Antares produces dragonburn across the district, overwhelming nearby civilians. Yerkes sends vulnerable residents underground, while Schmidt advances through the chaos. Knowing Schmidt can change appearance and intercept communications, Yerkes clears the area before the scientist can join the evacuees. Schmidt remains hidden and removes the last obstacle in his path. The city's counters have already burned out. Schmidt explains that a royal zodiac's sustained energy destroys cells and disrupts nerves. Antares released a catastrophic amount within seconds. Narade must endure that pressure alone, while Schmidt prioritizes Geo. He follows a stairway past a cocooned victim, unaware that the route has been prepared as a trap. Razor-sharp thread slices through the corridor. Kerner emerges and declares that a spider should hunt aggressively, instead of waiting for prey that knows it is being watched. Schmidt had hoped to avoid Antares and calls Kerner the luckier encounter. She corrects him. Headquarters appears lightly defended, only because she allowed him to reach this point. Their fight spreads across the platforms. Schmidt attacks with transformed dragon limbs, while Kerner strings cutting threads across every route of escape. A web drops from above and binds Schmidt against the framework. With all four limbs immobilized, his search for Geo could end before it truly begins. Schmidt blasts through the first restraint with a concealed weapon. Kerner expected it, and countless anchored strands have already turned the building into her hunting ground. The second web is both sharp and caustic. Schmidt twists between threads that burn through steel, discovering that the spider dragon's silk can poison as easily as restrain. Unable to contest the web directly, Schmidt releases smoke and drops to the floor below. Kerner tracks him at once, leaving only seconds to improvise. Kerner uses the entire structure for irregular attacks. The spider dragon's specialty. Because Schmidt is sustaining Narade's replacement organs, He cannot properly heal himself or create convincing doubles. Schmidt threatens bombs, but Kerner senses every trace of dragonfolk energy through the skin on her neck. She condemns his manipulation of others, and he asks whether Antares behaves any differently. Kerner rejects the comparison and calls Antares' overwhelming strength a force of nature. Her furious defense turns into an intimate list of everything she adores about her captain. Schmidt launches his counter, but more threadbows unfold beyond the visible trap. Vowing that no one will interfere with Antares, Kerner fires the full web, and the outcome disappears behind a storm of lethal silk.